Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to London. We're in mid-August, it's that time of year where we look ahead to September. You know, it's a time where we begin to think about things changing, new beginnings, new chapters in people's lives, and so with that in mind, I thought it would be perfect to talk about this story that broke a couple of weeks ago. It's about some comments that the Chancellor Rishi Sunak made about returning to the office. Let's have a look. Young people benefit from being in the office, Chancellor Rishi Sunak has said, as he highlighted its positive influence on his own early career. Mr. Sunak said he doubted he would have forged the links with mentors who had helped him if he had been forced to rely on video conferencing tools such as Zoom. This is something that I'm going through right now. I'm currently doing an internship in PR and comms, and most of it's been done online, and I think has worked quite well. I've actually been able to forge some really good links with people over video conferencing. For me, it's Microsoft Teams, and I love how Microsoft Teams works, and I think that I've been able to really get along with some really great people. I obviously would have liked to have been in person a bit more, forging those personal connections, but actually, I think that at the end of the day, what matters is the work you produce. Isn't it amazing that, I can sit here in London and communicate with people who are in the Midlands, who are in Manchester, in Scotland even, and get an experience of all those different aspects of the country, so many different regions, and being able to do that from the comfort of my own home, in my own bedroom, at my own desk is really, really interesting, and definitely something that I think hasn't hindered me as I've gone on through this internship. But the Chancellor, I think, does make a good point that there are lots of people that you do get to meet in an office, and being able to hang out with them all the time and just get little hints and tips from them is really useful. Asked about a return to the workplace in an interview with LinkedIn News, Mr. Sunak highlighted the previous remarks that he's made about young people in particular benefiting from being in offices. He said, "It was really beneficial to me when I was starting out in my career." Now, that is very, very interesting, and I think the point about young people in particular that the Chancellor's making is definitely true. And I have to say, again, something that I have experience in from doing my apprenticeship a few years ago, when you're early in your career especially, I think it's so important to have that office experience. I am glad that I was able to have an entire year of an office experience before going to university and before the pandemic happened, because I know what that world is like. And it's something that you see all the time when you're younger. You look at people dressed up in their nice suits, going into the office, wherever it may be, whether it's in Canary Wharf or Farringdon or Manchester, Birmingham, whatever it is. It's something that you envisage, and it's something that's almost aspirational in a way. And so I was able to have that experience of going into the office, being around people, doing business travel up and down the country. And that's just something that's not going to happen for young people in the post-pandemic era. You're not going to be in an office 5 days a week anymore. That's over. It'll be 2-3 days a week. And so, what the Chancellor's saying here is, young people in their early careers, being stuck in your bedroom for 5 days a week is not going to be ideal. That I agree with him on. Referring to a recent visit to Scotland where he met young people starting careers in financial services, he said, "I was telling them, the mentors that I found when I first started my job, I still talk to, and they've been really helpful to me all through my career, even after we've gone in different ways. I doubt I would have had those strong relationships if I was doing my summer internship or the first bit of my career over Teams and Zoom. And that's why I think for young people in particular, being able to be physically in an office is valuable." And again, the relationships you build with people early in your career, the advice that people give you early in your career can really change how you view your possible career path. I certainly got advice 3-4 years ago that I still keep with me to this day, and it's very hard when you're online. You have your Outlook calendar, you've got times for certain meetings that you have to stick to, and it's very difficult, to get that sort of impromptu interaction with people, maybe after a meeting or in the kitchen or at the water cooler. The water cooler chat that people talk about. That's very difficult to replicate when you're on Microsoft Teams or on Zoom. But when you're in an office, after the meeting, you'll hang around with a couple of people and they'll give you a little bit of advice here and there, or you can just go for a little chat in the kitchen, and someone will always give you some career advice, ask you about what you're doing, what you want to do in the future. And those are the sorts of things that I think you miss out on. But having said that, working from home does have its advantages, and those conversations can still happen online, but you just have to make extra effort to be able to put that time in, whether it's with your line manager or with someone from a different team you want to get to know. You've got to make the effort to put that time in to make sure you get that advice, because at the end of the day, the advice isn't changing. The stuff you're doing online isn't different to what you're doing in an office. It's about the environment and what sort of environment do you want to be in. Personally, for me, I like a bit of both. And I think that's going to be the future. It's got to be a bit of both. I am spending most of my time working from home. It's really good. It's convenient. I can get up 5 minutes before the work starts. I don't actually do that. Don't worry. It's just hypothetically I could do. But, being able to just stay in my own room, go into my own kitchen, make my own lunch, at the end of the day, make my own dinner, not have to commute for 40 minutes. It's wonderful. Having said that, I am relishing, just being able to put on some nice clothes for once, being able to get into the office, meet some people, sit at a really nice desk, have a nice lunch, hang out with other people. I do miss that sort of camaraderie that you have with a team and being able to build that sort of relationship. I do miss that. And that's something that I hope to be able to do as I move on in my career. Spending a bit more time in an office is definitely going to be really nice to do. We've kind of stopped saying that people should actively work from home and have now left it up to businesses to work with their teams to figure out the right approach. In terms of a return to work, it's cautious, it's careful, so there will be a gradual return back to offices, and I think that is what broadly will happen. Well, we have to wait and see how this all pans out, but I will say this. The idea that employees are suddenly just going to say, pandemic's over, let's go back to the way things were in February 2020, let's return to the old normal of February 2020, that I can quite frankly tell you is for the birds. It ain't going to happen. People won't stand for it. Why? Because we now know people can get work done from home. I've got work done from home. Lots of people are able to work effectively from home. It's far more efficient to work from home. And so we're not going back to normal the way things were in February 2020. We're not going back. People are always on TV and radio talking about the fact that we need to get back to normal and that we need to get back to the way things were. We're not going back to the way things were. That's not happening. We're moving forwards. We're moving forwards with new technology, new ways of working, new ways of keeping in touch with other people. That's what's happening. It's a new world. There is no going back. People are not going to commute 5 days a week to an office for a job that they can do from their kitchen. It's not going to happen. So I think what we're going to see is a sweet spot of maybe 2 days a week at home, 3 days a week in the office, or maybe 3 days a week at home, 2 days a week in the office, right? People not spending all this time on trains, a lot of money on trains, going into, cities for no reason, things like that. Although, of course, let's remember, we've mentioned the business side of things and, the employee's perspective, and employers are going to want to get their people back into, although they might have some flexibility as well. But then we also got to remember, who are we talking about here? We're talking about the Chancellor of the Exchequer. What is his main concern? His main concern is the dinero. That's all he's worried about. He wants to make sure that people are travelling into London, travelling into offices, paying for trains, and most importantly, going out and spending their cash in city centres. Look at all of the businesses in London, all of the small businesses, the small business restaurants, right? All of these takeaway places, all these businesses that have basically been left desolate during the pandemic because no one's coming into cities to spend their money there on their lunch breaks or for business meetings. It's all gone, right? And the Chancellor is worried about that. He does not want to see city centres decimated. He wants to see people travelling in to ensure they can pump more money into the economy and, get those businesses thriving again. But I just don't think it's plausible to tell people to travel in to do jobs they can do from home. It's not going to happen. But I will say the Chancellor's point that he's making about young people specifically is absolutely spot on. I don't know how I would manage starting my career purely online. I'm not sure if I could do it, but, that is just me. But, again, when we're talking about the pandemic, it's all about accelerating change, right? We already had the tools to work from home, even pre-pandemic, right? Maybe they weren't as polished as they are now, but we did have the tools. Well, with the pandemic, that trend has just been accelerated big time. And now people are realizing, oh my God, I can work from home. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, stay working from home. not going to bother going back to the office. Now, there's some people on the extremes who will say, I will never return to an office again. Not going to happen. And there are actually some people with very good reasons for that. A lot of people, especially in the black community and other minority communities, especially over in the United States, are saying, if me working from home is bliss because I don't have to face daily microaggressions, daily attacks on how I look, a lot of people are actually seeing a lot of relief from being away from the office. People who are introverts are happy to not be in the office and to not have those unnecessary small talk conversations that nobody really wants to have, but people have them anyway. You know what I mean? That's kind of annoying. But on balance, what the Chancellor's saying is right to an extent. For young people especially, get back in the office has to be done. But in the future, it's going to be all about that work-life balance, making sure that people can get work done, but doing it as efficiently as possible.